this is Dan Dawson, and you're listening to Josh's Dartistry.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and a hello to you from wherever you are in the world listening to episode number 11 of the JDP, the Josh's Dartistry podcast. Welcome along. Thank you for downloading us. Thank you for checking us out. Thanks for sticking with us. We have got an action-packed show for you today. Plenty to discuss. We haven't recorded in about the last 3 to 4 weeks. And 3 to 4 weeks in darts, gentlemen, is a very, very long time in the darting world because there's been so much going on. Not just tournaments and arrows being thrown, but news stories floating around and stuff coming up for this current calendar year. So lots and lots to discuss. But before that, let's introduce you to the team. First and foremost, Josh Gorton. How are you, Josh?
I'm very well, thanks. John, how are you?
I'm okay, mate. It's been a busy January for me. I've not been doing dry January. I've seen a lot of people doing dry January. Josh, have you cut out the booze for January? Is that something you've been doing to improve your sort of health? And
I'm not a big drinker, really, John, but no, I'm not one for dry January, no.
Neil, as you said, I'm not a big drinker, John. Neil's eyes started to bulge across the table. I think we've all seen you with the odd Copperberg in your hand on occasions.
Yeah, about once a week, maybe.
You do like a fruity cider. Josh, I imagine you've been quite busy throughout the month of January.
Yeah, lots of darts been going on. Obviously, the Premier League begins next week, which we'll be previewing. So, yep, plenty to keep us busy.
Wonderful. Look forward to all of that. On my left-hand side, Statsman Neil Connor. How are you, Neil?
Very well, thank you.
Lovely, lovely. How's the start of your 2019 been?
Yeah, not too bad. Quite busy.
Oh, you finally gone back to work, have you?
I did go back to work.
That must have been a slug.
And I've been playing catch up ever since. So very busy January month for me.
And currently on tenterhooks, Neil, was your side, your Liverpool side, the Red Men, top of the table.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And all the pressure is now on to stay there.
We could lose on Monday and still be top of the table. There's a bit of a cushion there.
But I'm sure you're going to be helped out by Arsenal giving Man City an absolute spanking on Sunday.
Well, I expect them to.
I think minimum 4 goals for Arsenal, would you reckon?
No, absolutely. I think with the 4 Man City are in after being turned over by a poor Newcastle side, I fully expect Arsenal to go there and take City.
On to the darts.
On to the darts indeed. Yeah, so as I said, it's been a long 3 or 4 weeks. Loads has happened since we last recorded. Josh, when we last recorded episode 10, we were in the throes of the BDO Worlds, weren't we?
We were. I think that it just got underway. I think it was the opening weekend when we last recorded. So hopefully that's all been and gone. And then we've then seen obviously Q School, plenty of talking points, and then obviously the Challenge Tour weekend got underway. And now as we record, the Masters is underway. So yeah, plenty of darts. Yeah,
the Bet Victor Masters is underway. We've got it on the background on the TV as we're recording. I had to prise Josh and Neil away from the television to come and start recording this podcast. We've seen a game or two already. Obviously, there were some games, 4 games, I believe, last night as well, Josh, which I'm sure we'll come to and have a discussion. But yeah, if our attention is diverted, it's because we've got it on in the background. We've also got the cricket at the moment taking place. I see England are disgracing themselves, Josh, out in the West Indies.
Yeah, let's not mention that, John. All going wrong.
So yeah, we'll have a chat about all those. Neil, you're going to give us some updated odds, aren't you?
Yeah, so we'll look at the odds for the Masters. I've got some special bets that I've found for the Premier League as well. So we'll look forward to the Premier League and some of the more novelty bets that may be on offer.
Cool, look forward to that one. Josh, you managed to secure an interview with possibly Dart's busiest man on the circuit, didn't you?
Yeah, I spoke to Dan Dawson earlier. Dan, like I say, he commentated for the PDC, commentates on all the Pro Tour events, European Tour events, also does commentary for ITV Sport, the BBC, and obviously appears on the Darts show regularly, which is on Sky Sports, so he's a jack of all trades in darts.
Wonderful, can't wait to hear what Dan's got to say. I'm sure it was a good interview. We will then be moving on to the 2 words that strike the most fear into our main host. Challenge Josh, Neil.
Kind of a topical theme to this episode's challenge, Josh.
Interesting.
Very fact-based.
I would hope so.
And
Makes a change.
clean darting knowledge is required.
Interesting. So we'll come on to that a little bit later. We'll then have a roundup of some additional news items, Josh, that have been doing the rounds. There's been quite a lot on your website as well, which I've been reading. Some reports that you've done, which are really good. I see on your website you've had a couple of exclusive interviews, one with Ricky Evans, and you also had another one with Michael Smith, didn't you?
Yeah, I managed to catch up with both Michael Smith and Ricky Evans earlier this week. Obviously, Marco had a brilliant year, reaching 3 major finals. Obviously, the World Championship runner-up. Ricky also had his best year of his career to date. So, both brilliant talents and both looking to have a great 2019.
Brilliant. So, make sure you check those articles out on Josh's website. That's www.joshisdartistry.com. Some fantastic work gone up on there in the last couple of weeks. And once we've reviewed the news, we'll finish the podcast with our regular Q&A section. Neil, I think we've had some questions, haven't we, come in via Twitter?
Yeah, I think we've got 3 or 4 questions that we'll discuss later in the show.
Excellent. I might have some questions of my own that I want answering from the pair of you, but we'll come on to that a little bit later. Don't forget, folks, you can download the podcast from iTunes, Stitcher. You can also listen to the podcast on YouTube. Log on to the website, as I mentioned a moment ago, www.joshisdartistry.com. We also have a Facebook page, a Twitter page at Josh's Dartistry, and that's how you can check us out on social media. With that being said, gentlemen, welcome to episode 11. Enjoy the show. You're listening to the Josh's Dartistry podcast. Don't forget you can check us out on Facebook, the Josh's Dartistry page. You can also follow us on Twitter at Josh's Dartistry. And you can also go to our website, www.joshisdartistry.com, for all the latest news, blogs and information on the world of darts. Don't forget you can also call us and leave us a message on our voicemail box. That's 07739 738 329. That's 07739 738 329. Call our voicemail box, leave us a message, leave us a question, and we may play it on the show. Now back to the show. Okay, Josh, before we go any further, let's round up the BDO World Championship, shall we?
Yeah, it seems like an age ago now, doesn't it, John? But yeah, I feel this year's BDO World Championship was on Eurosport and Quest. Mm-hmm. I thought the coverage was very good.
I agree. I thought it was excellent. We
had the commentary team of Chris Mason, John Rawlin, who are both obviously on ITV regularly. Paul Nicholson as well was great value, and obviously Tony O'Shea and Martin Adams, 2 Lakeside veterans, both into the commentary box. Yeah, really good tournament. Glen Durrant in the men's section won his 3rd consecutive Lakeside title, beating Scott Waits in the final. 2 of the most experienced performers in the tournament, really. Obviously, Waits and Durrant both with 2 Lakeside titles coming into the event. Durrant, he was very comfortable throughout the tournament, really, apart from maybe his second round game against Scott Baker.
Tight, wasn't it? A 4-3.
Yeah, after he beat Mark McGrath 3-0 in the opening round, very little trouble there. Scott Baker was 3-0 down against Durrant, but came back superbly, took out a 140 checkout to make it 3-all. But Durrant in the last set had too much. Beat Carl McKinstry, talented Northern Ireland player, 5-2 in the quarterfinals. Jim Williams, who's been one of the best players on the BDO circuit this year, beat him 6-3. Durrant and Williams are very good friends, and Williams performed really well, but Durrant just had too much. And then the final, Scott had underperformed in comparison to Durrant throughout the tournament, really, but it was 3-all at the first break, but Durrant then, after the interval, came out very strong, won 4 consecutive sets to win 7-3 and seal his 3rd successive Lakeside title. Brilliant achievement.
Yeah, and I think when you look at it, throughout the tournament, he was very, very consistent in his play. I think his averages went between 90, didn't deviate beyond a range of 93 to 98.2. So very consistent performances and another world title.
Yeah, I'm obviously matching Eric Bristow's haul of 3 successive Lakeside titles was a really, really good achievement.
And obviously, shortly after he won the title, we were greeted with the news that Durrant was heading to Q School. Josh, how did he get on there?
He came through Q School on the final day, John. It was a real tough...
Left it late, didn't he?
Yeah, he suffered 2 consecutive last 128 exits on the opening 2 days to put himself in real danger. Had a really good run to the semi-finals on day 3. Came within 1 match of winning his tour card, but lost. And then he had to reach the last 32 or last 16 on the final day and came for a couple of really close games, but got his tour card, and it's brilliant. It's going to be brilliant to see him on the PDC Tour next year.
I saw a report on your website that included comments from Barry Hearn saying that he was absolutely delighted that Durrant had qualified.
Of course, I mean, Barry Hearn in the past, there's been a lot of questions kind of asked towards Barry, saying, you know, Stephen Bunting, obviously, he got a wild card, well, not a wild card, but Stephen Bunting got an automatic tour card after winning Lakeside.
Yeah.
Obviously, Barney joined the PDC before Q School was formed, so he came straight into the PDC. And people were asking Barry, you know, he's a 3-time Lakeside champion, surely he should just be given a tour card. But he said, no, it's a meritocracy. You have to earn your spot.
No, fair enough.
Which is fair enough, but I think Barry was obviously very pleased that Glen did it, because you want to see the best players in the world playing in the PDC, and Glen is certainly one of those.
So I imagine Glen will have to sort of slim down his business. He runs is it an estate agency he runs, or a property company?
He's actually quitting his job now.
He's quitting it.
Yeah, because he said, obviously, you know, it's one thing playing in the BDO circuit, but to be playing against Michael van Gogh and Gary Anderson, Rob Cross, you know, all these top players, whilst holding down a full-time job, it's almost impossible, really, to kind of reach that standard. So, yep, the job's gone now for Glen, and it's all focused on the professional tour.
Neil, the BDOs, what did you make? Josh and I were just chatting about the coverage. What did you make of it?
I thought it was excellent. The bits I saw, the commentary, as you say, was very good. Chris Mason is always entertaining. I thought, you know, we've been critical of some of the TV coverage of the BDO in the past, but they seem to be getting their act together, and it was good. Incidentally, going back a few weeks earlier to the or a couple of weeks earlier to the PDC, I was listening to some darts on Talk Sport, which is not something that I've done much before. Again, it was Chris Mason and Paul Nicholson, and it was really, really quite entertaining. In fact, I was listening to it on the way back from Ali Pally. So darts on the radio is good to listen, is an entertaining
Talk
listen.
Sport have really sort of got involved recently, haven't they?
Yeah, it was on Talk Sport 2, the World Championship. So I don't know whether they'll be carrying on for
I think they will for the Premier League. They're going to be doing lots of nights. So that'd be good.
So it's certainly another avenue to pick up the coverage, and that was good. But as I say, for the BDO, I was very impressed. I
think having well-established production companies on board like Eurosport and like Quest, which I think is part of the UK family, has probably helped them out massively.
Yeah, it has. It has. It was a very, very professional production, and long may it continue.
Josh, just sticking with the BDO men's for a moment, any other sort of standout performances that you can think of, people that we may have had our eye on before the tournament began, and how did they get on? I'll tell you what we should discuss first, both of you. That's the first time I've ever seen a darts competition and a man walking out to take to the stage on a pair of crutches.
Yeah, I mean, that was something quite unexpected, wasn't it? Obviously, we mentioned Adam Smith-Neil. He was an injury doubt for the World Championship after, I think it was breaking his leg, wasn't it? I can't remember. Yeah,
broke his leg over in Italy.
Yeah, and he was a major doubt, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to give a proper account of himself. I think
who did he play?
He played Mark McGrath. Then he went on to lose to Glen Durrant in the opening round. But Smith-Neil, we saw at the Grand Slam, and obviously more pointedly the World Masters. He beat Glen Durrant in that final. He showed his class, but he was in a hell of a lot of pain. He only averaged in the mid-60s, but fair play to him for sticking it out, braving it out. And I've seen his Twitter recently. I think he's now back on his feet playing to a better standard. So good luck to him.
Josh, talk to me about our two ex-PDC players who played in the BDO Worlds this year.
Yeah, both Andy Hamilton and Wes Newton suffered preliminary round exits, John, disappointingly. Wes Newton was beaten by Paul Hogan, a familiar face. Obviously, we've seen Paul Hogan, Crocodile Dundee at the UK Open, beating a lot of top players. Wasn't a great match. Wes struggled throughout. And Andy Hamilton also was beaten 3-0 in the preliminary round by David Cameron, not the Prime Minister, the Canadian darts player.
I think we've done that joke on this podcast before.
Yeah, it's getting a bit old now, I think.
Okay, Josh. Anything else from the men's bracket?
No, I think that's all though.
Okay, talk to me about the ladies' competition. We had a brand new winner, Josh.
We did, and it was a debutant, John, in the shape of Japanese sensation Mikuru Suzuki. I think we mentioned when we were talking about the draw, she was obviously pitted against Lisa Ashton, who's won 4 of the last 5 titles. We saw Lisa at the PDC World Championship. She threw superbly well. She was a real big favourite to win her 5th title this year, but Lisa really struggled in her game against Mikuru, missed a hell of a lot of doubles. Suzuki really came on strong in the final set of that match and beat Lisa 2-0, and Suzuki didn't drop a set throughout the entire tournament. She beat Sharon Prinz in quite a scrappy last 8 encounter. Then faced Maria O'Brien, who almost qualified for the PDC Worlds. Maria beat Dita Hedman and Fallon Sherrock to reach the semi-finals, but Suzuki took care of her in the semi-finals 2-0, and in the final she faced Lorraine Winstanley, the top seed. Lorraine was appearing in her first Lakeside final, but Mikuru performed superbly well, averaging over 90, the first female player to average over 90 in a Women's World Championship final, and she ran out a 3-0 winner.
Anyone have a bet on the ladies' darts?
So, some of you may know, you may have seen on Twitter that I had a little bet prior to the BDO's start. This is your fault as well, Neil, because you brought me this in the odds section. You told me that Lorraine Winstanley was 16-1 to win it. So, unbeknown to you two, I did have a cheeky tenner on Lorraine Winstanley to win it. And obviously, when she got to the final, I started to get a little bit excited with my eyes on the prize and the £170 coming into my bank account. But unfortunately, Suzuki, she stitched me up right at the end there, Josh, and it cost me a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, poor Lorraine, there was very little she could do. I mean, Suzuki took out, I think, 72, 80 and 148 in the opening set, absolutely rampant. And Lorraine performed well, but Suzuki was just inspired that day.
She's beaten some big names there as well. It's not like she's, played sort of bottom of the pile to open up with Ashton and then to take on Prince, O'Brien and Winstanley and win the whole thing. That's a pretty effective performance, Josh, all the way through from start to finish.
I mean, like we say, Leith was a big favourite. I mean, she's dominated the women's circuit over the last few years. Obviously, Sharon Prince, 7th seed, very capable player. Maria was unseeded, but obviously, as I mentioned, she'd beaten Dita Hedman and Fallon Sherrock, two of the most established players there. So every game was tough for Suzuki, but she just rose to the challenge on every occasion.
Yeah, my pick for the ladies winner was Fallon Sherrock. How did she get on, Josh?
She obviously lost to Maria O'Brien in the
yeah.
quarterfinals, but performed really well in her first match.
Yeah, she was superb in her first game. That was one that I managed to catch on TV. Did anyone pick the winner from the ladies?
They didn't. No,
nobody picked out Suzuki. I had Fallon. Josh,
I had Dobromyslova, who got to the semis.
Lisa Ashton.
You had Lisa Ashton.
That went well.
Well, to be fair, Anastasia got to the semis, so out of everyone, I was closest.
Well, you say out of everyone, I was the closest. In the entire competition that we set for the winner of the PDC Men's Worlds, the BDO and the men's and the BDO ladies, I think I came the closest, didn't I? Because I picked two correct winners, gentlemen.
Yes, you went for the two world number ones in each codes, John. Very, very brave effort.
Listen, I was asked a question, I gave an answer, and I got 2 out of 3.
Is Josh claiming that getting to the semi-finals is successful?
Well, it worked for Tottenham.
I was going to say, are we back to this? The top 4 is an achievement, is that?
If it works for Mauricio Pochettino, Neil, it works for me.
Listen, we obviously set the competition for you, the JDP listener, to come up with the 3 winners of the 3 individual competitions. We were going to give away a mug. Unfortunately, nobody got anywhere near, so we don't have a winner. We have got coming up the Premier League prize competition. We're going to set that a little bit later on. We'll come on to that a little bit later, but we'll give you another opportunity to win some prizes with our new Premier League last man standing competition. But we'll announce that a little bit later on. Josh, before we conclude BDOs, let's talk about Leighton Bennett winning the World Youth Final.
Yeah, I mean, he's an incredible story, isn't he? Obviously, Leighton Bennett kind of came into the darting news last summer when he, as a 12-year-old, won the Cambridgeshire Open, beat Ricky Evans, who I interviewed earlier this week, en route to winning that. And yeah, at the age of 13, he performed absolutely incredibly well in his first big TV final, really, against Nathan Gervin. The young Scot had appeared in the World Youth Final a couple of years ago and lost out on that occasion, and unfortunately for him, history repeated itself. Bennett averaged over 86 and took out a brilliant 1-2-1 on the ball to win it, and his celebration was just brilliant. Absolutely joyous scenes from him. 13 years old, what a future in the game.
Yeah, it was a very, very impressive performance. Neil, did you manage to catch it at all?
I didn't, but I did read about it. Incredible that someone so young can have that type of ability. Yeah,
keep your eyes peeled for him in the future, definitely, Josh.
Yeah, he's also been mentored by Rob Cross as well, but I think they're both stable mates now, and obviously Rob is a perfect example of obviously someone who's kind of stormed into the darting limelight as well. So, wonder what odds you could get on him now, lifting a version of a World Championship trophy if you were to go and ask at the bookies. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, he's definitely got the talent, and at the age of 13, he could have a career for 4 more decades. Perhaps, Neil, before we get to the odds section, you could maybe look that up and see if anyone's offering it. I'm sure his parents have been down the bookies and put a tenner on it already. We can do a request a bet with some of the bookmakers to see whether they're willing to offer odds on someone so young. Yeah, a lot of families do that with footballers, don't they? To sort of play for England at even when they're sort of 6 years old, put a tenner on their son playing for England. So it might be something that one of our bookmakers might be interested in doing.
Okay, so that rounds up our discussion for the BDO World Championships. Durrant, your men's winner. Suzuki, your ladies' winner. And, of course, Leighton Bennett, your World Youth winner.
Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry.
Okay, Josh, no sooner had we crowned our 2019 PDC World Champion, European Q School kicked off.
Yeah, there was 4 days of European Q School. There was 1 automatic tour card winner per day. And then after the 4 days were finished, the top 7 on the European Q School Order of Merit then received their tour cards. Now, day 1 was won by young Dutchman Niels Zonneveld. Another Dutchman won on day 2, Mark van Duivenbode. Day 3 was won by Christian Bunts. And then number 4 on day 4 was Darius Labanauskas.
Labanauskas is a name that...
Rings a bell, Labanauskas. So why is that name
he had
sticking?
a good run at the World Championship, Darius, so well done to him.
How did he get on at the Worlds?
He lost to Adrian Lewis in the 3rd round.
And who had he beaten?
He beat Matthew Egger in the 1st round.
And then he beat...
And Barneveld in the 2nd round.
Sorry, Josh, that was very unfair. Carry on, mate.
Thank you, John, for that. And then the players who didn't win automatic tour card but still got a tour card via the European Q School Order of Merit were as follows: Madas Rasma, Marco Cantelli, Jordi Mayrisser, Vincent van der Meer, John Michael, Jose de Souza, and Mike Koivenhoven. Now, we've seen a few of those names, such as John Michael, Jose de Souza, obviously Madas Rasma and Marco Cantelli, all former World Championship participants, so they'll be back on the PDC Tour this year.
Excellent stuff. And then we've also had UK qualifying school, yeah?
Yep, that was obviously nearly 400 entries in Wigan for that one.
At the Robin Park Tennis Centre.
Indeed.
Don't fold a lot of events, the Robin Park Tennis Centre, doesn't it?
No, they get their money's worth from it, don't they?
They also do the Challenge Tour as well.
They do indeed, yeah. So for UK Q School, there was 2 automatic tour card winners per day. And then after that, the next 11 on the Q School Order of Merit who didn't receive an automatic tour card, they also won their PDC statuses. So day 1 was won by Jamie Hughes and Harry Ward. Hughes was on fire, averaged 109 for 3 consecutive games, so brilliant stuff from him.
Very good.
Day 2, 2 former BDO stars. Mark McGeaney, who was top seed at the Lakeside, he won his tour card. And Scott Baker, we mentioned him, who almost beat Glen Durrant at the Worlds. He won his automatic tour card as well. Day 3 was Reece Robinson and Matt Clark. And day 4, former World Championship finalists Kirk Shepherd and Nathan Derry. Then obviously it was the next 11 on the UK Q School Order of Merit, and they were as follows: Jonathan Worsley, Carl Wilkinson, Glen Durrant, as we mentioned earlier, 3-time BDO World Champion, Gavin Carlin, Joe Mernon, Adrian Gray, Andy Bolton, Jamie Bain, David Pallett, former UK Open semi-finalist, Conan Whitehead, another former BDO star, and Barry Bates, remember him, former UK Open finalist.
Yeah, definitely. Some high-profile names there, Josh. There's also some high-profile names that missed out.
Yes, the biggest one of all, really. 3-time world champion John Parr, unfortunately didn't make his tour card this year. Kevin Painter, former World Championship finalist. Andy Hamilton and Wes Newton, we mentioned, former Premier League stars who lost out at the Lakeside. They also missed out. Andrew Gilding, Richie Burnett, and we also had a host of female stars participating. Lisa Ashton came within 1 game of winning her tour card. She performed so well over the last couple of days in particular. So great effort from Lisa. Anastasia Dobromyslova won a couple of matches. I think got to the last 32, in fact, on the final day. Also, we had Fallon Sherrick and Dieter Edmond competing, but they were obviously missed out as well. So many high-profile names in Wigan. Some very happy people, and obviously some very disappointed ones.
So for the players that have earned their tour card, that have come across from the BDO,
yeah,
what does it mean to their participation in terms of BDO tournaments going forward?
Well, now they're PDC tour card holders. They're not allowed to enter BDO events. Obviously, Glen Durrant will not be able to defend his World Championship title, for example, next year. But the restrictions have been lifted in BDO events. So players, for example, like Kevin Painter, like potentially John Part, even though he won't, because John Part's going to play on the American circuit on the PDC now. But people who missed out on a tour card could now go and play the BDO circuit. That's what we saw Andy Hamilton and Wes Newton do last year, and obviously qualify via that. But no, BDO players who've won their PDC tour cards, they are now contracted and they're now playing solely on the PDC tour.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Josh. That is your Q School roundup. Interesting to note some names that did and obviously did not achieve their tour card for the year. So it'll be interesting to see going forward how they all get on.
You're listening to Josh's Dartistry. Don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook by going to the Josh's Dartistry page. You can follow us on Twitter at Josh's Dartistry or go to the website www.joshisdartistry.com for the latest news and insight to the world of darts. You can also leave us a comment or a question via our voicemail box. Just call 07739 738 329. Leave us a message and we may play it on air. Now back to the show.
Okay, Josh, as we mentioned at the top of the show, you managed to secure an interview with darts connoisseur Dan Dawson.
Awfully very grateful to be able to speak to Dan Dawson earlier, John. He's awfully covering the Masters for the PDC and ITV Sport at the moment, but he took some time out to have a chat with me about the previous World Championship, awfully his work on the European Tour, players he's expecting big things from, and he also mentioned Gerwyn Price and the DRA, awfully outcome last week, so it's a very interesting interview from Dan.
Okay, let's have a listen.
Right, guys, I'm delighted to be joined here by PDC's commentator, Dan Dawson. Well, you're a jack of all trades, Dan. ITV, BBC, you're everywhere, mate.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, they'll... Where there's a gap where they want a very, very average darts-related person, then I'm ideal to fill it. But I am blessed that I get to work on the European Tour as well, the finest tour in professional sport. So, ITV, BBC, that's all right. But PDC TV is where it's at, Josh, you know this.
Yeah, of course. I'm subscribed, Dan, so I'm with you on that one. Just reflecting, Alfie, we've started the Masters now. Dan last night, Alfie Mensah, Sulovic, Michael van Gerwen, most impressive. But just going back and reflecting on the World Championship and Q score a little bit, do you think we've really seen a changing of the guard now in darts? We've seen obviously Luke Humphries, Nathan Aspinall, Chris Dobey perform so well at Ali Pali, and so many veterans of the game, people like John Park, Kevin Painter, Andy Hamilton, Wes Newton all miss out on tour cards. It really has been a changing of the guard, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think you're always getting a changing of the guard to a certain extent. But whereas perhaps in the past you might have thought there are certain players who've come back and got their tour cards over the last couple of years who perhaps you might not have thought they were going to do it. You know, you look at the likes of Wayne Jones, Alan Tabern, Michael Barnard. These are guys who have been, knocking around on the tour for a number of years, not really doing a great deal for certain chunks of it, and then they've lost their tour cards, and you think, that might be the last we see of them. We've seen plenty of former world number ones, the likes of Colin Lloyd, who dropped away and not made it back. And the Challenge Tour in particular is such a healthy, competitive environment with such a carrot at the end of those weekends. Not only is it $2,000 per tournament, but it's your chance to go and get high enough in the rankings on the Challenge Tour to go and play on the Pro Tour and make Euro Tours and make big tournaments and get your tour card back at the end of the year. It's really helping some guys prolong their careers, and some of them arguably play as well as ever. So I'd never write anybody off, a Painter or Jamie Caven, for example, a man who's won more than half a dozen PDC ranking titles. I'd never write them off, but it is very, very hard. And we have seen young players really make their mark and look to establish themselves. Some of them, like Luke Humphries, haven't been around for that long, but others like Chris Dobey, you're kind of thinking it's about time that we saw Chris Dobey do this sort of stuff in big tournaments, because he's been agonisingly close to competing on the biggest stages in world darts on a regular basis, and he's not quite got there, despite the fact he's made 3 PDC finals. So look, I just think it's exciting. I think that the game is in a healthier state than it's ever been in terms of the strength in depth, and that makes it exciting, because you're going into tournaments genuinely not knowing who's going to win it.
Looking at Q score again, obviously Glen Durrant's the name that springs to mind. He was under so much pressure, having won obviously 3 Lakeside titles back to back. Now he's got his tour card. How do you see him faring in the PDC?
I think he's quality. I think he will do well. And I'm very, very impressed. I said it at the time at Q School. Had he turned up and just blasted his way through on the opening day, like somebody like Corey Cadby did, then that would have been very impressive. But I'm almost more impressed by the fact that going there as the main man to watch, failing on the first couple of days, he didn't have a lot of time to prepare for it. I spoke to Glenn before he played his first game on the opening day, and he said, from the moment that I won the Lakeside, that winning dart, I was trying to gear myself up for this. Whereas other players have been looking at it, from a more long-term perspective. Either they weren't involved in Lakeside or they went out early, the likes of Mark McGeaney, who was desperately impressive at Q School. I think he'll be a real force on the Pro Tour over the next couple of years. But look, I think Durrant is quality, and he does play very well on big stages. I think it is vital for him to get get on the Euro Tour and get playing in front of those big crowds on a more regular basis, because that will settle him down, it will earn him some ranking money, and it will give him a chance to qualify for those big TV tournaments. And he's going to change. Look, he is used to being the big force in the BDO. He is going to have to get used to not being the best player on any given day, potentially for weeks, months at a time, maybe even years. Look, Stephen Bunting came over, won his second tournament, had a great first year in the PDC. Yes, he dipped after that, but I think it's important that Durrant hits the ground running, and that is pressure. It's going to be fascinating watching it. But I think that that Mark McGeaney could be a real danger on the Pro Tour as well. So look, the BDO lads who've won their tour cards, I think it's very exciting for a new year in PDC cards.
And now you've been involved, Dan, in the PDC for over a decade now. Are you staggered by just how big the sport has become?
Yes and no. Look, I mean, ever since I fell in love with the game as soon as I went and did my first tournament, which was like 11 years ago now, and seeing it grow, I mean, I'm amazed how the Euro Tour has taken off, how Germany has fallen in love with the game, how it's grown and grown, and how you're seeing, other countries genuinely emerge with top players. In Germany, it's been fantastic watching them over the last 5 years, and it only takes about 5-6 years for a player to come from nowhere and reach the very top. So who knows what the next 5 years is going to look like, particularly if other countries start coming to the party, if we start seeing mass numbers of people taking up the game in, I don't know, Italy. Hungary has a very strong darts scene. Who knows? It is becoming certainly a European-wide game, a Europe-wide game. The hope is it becomes a worldwide game, and we're just going to have to see. It's very early days in trying to get into America and China, but Australia has consistently been able to produce world-class players, not en masse, but they're regularly churning them out every few years, and fingers crossed that Corey Cadby comes over and flies the flag. But look, I just think it's a very exciting place to be at the minute in PDC darts, and darts in general, so long may it continue.
Now, you mentioned the Euro Tour there, and we've seen, obviously, at the Ali Pali, so many kind of young players with not a lot of big stage experience upsetting the big seeds. How important do you think the Euro Tour has been in giving those young players a big stage experience?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I mean, I've said this a number of times, and Justin Pipe, I remember when he was in his pomp and making major semi-finals and looking like he might become a major champion at some point, Justin Pipe, he was saying it takes you 2 years to learn how to win on the floor. It takes you another 2 years to learn how to win on the stage. And it had taken him 4 or 5 years at that point, and he was winning on the stage. And it looked like he was, as I say, potentially going to be the next major champion in PDC darts. It doesn't take that long anymore. Yes, you've got to do your apprenticeship. You've got to learn how to get through those floor tournaments. But when it comes to stage opportunities, you've got so many more of them nowadays. And the European Tour is primarily responsible for that. If you can go and play in front of 5,000 people on the Euro Tour, which we have had crowds of that size in places like Venray before, you're regularly getting 3,000-4,000 in Germany and the Netherlands. If you can go and do that, you're playing in front of crowds that are bigger than everything outside of the Premier League. Now, that is enormous experience. So if you can go and perform on those stages, there's no reason why you can't do it in front of the TV cameras when, admittedly, the stakes are higher, there's more money on it, there's more prestige on it, but it's just the atmosphere that you're learning to handle, and it fast-tracks young players to the point where they're able to go up on the stage, Ali Pali, or wherever, or the match play in Blackpool, and they're able to play somewhere near their best. And that means that when you hear senior players go, oh, these young players, they've got no fear anymore, they've got no fear, that's what they're on about, is they've got no fear in the big situations. I think they've always been, itching to have a go at the players in the floor tournaments in Wigan and Barnsley or wherever. It's just that when it comes to the crunch, those senior players always used to think, he's not going to be able to do it when everybody's watching on TV at Christmas, and now they can.
Just looking ahead now to the Premier League, which obviously begins in Newcastle next week. There's a little bit of uncertainty over Gary Anderson and his fitness. Obviously, he's had to pull out the Masters due to his back. Marco van Gerwen's a man to beat without question, but it looks quite an open tournament this year, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I was asked the other day, who do you think is going to finish in the bottom two on Judgment Night? I've got absolutely no idea. I genuinely do not know. I think that, it was a strange one to see Mensur there last year because he'd actually played very well. He had a better average than the vast majority of players. Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen again, but you can never tell. I think Peter Wright is under massive pressure this year. 2 years ago, he had the best year of his career, won 10 titles, and so much money at the start of the year, winning, I think it was 3 or 4 Euro Tours, half the UK Open qualifiers and the UK Open. Now, I know the Premier League isn't ranked, but the thing is, if Peter Wright is not picking up huge amounts of money on the Pro Tour in the early parts of this year, he is going to see money disappearing off his ranking. It's not a nice feeling. I'm an enormous fan of Peter Wright, but the pressure on him this year could tell, and it could be a problem for him in the Premier League. You're completely right. Michael van Gerwen is the man to beat. Gary Anderson, I hope he's there. I'm really glad that he's having something done about his back, because quite frankly, over the last 2 years, he hasn't done enough. And he's gone to the World Championship, and it's caused him problems, and then he's wondered, I've not won a world title again. And he can look at his back and go, well, that's the reason for it. But he hadn't done enough in the previous months to get it sorted. I understand he's seeing a chiropractor or an expert something like 3 times a week. So he's really, really going into it because he recognises how important it is. And I think that's a good thing. Hopefully he's able to balance that with his Premier League commitments. He's not going to play Euro Tour. He'll duck out with some Pro Tours as well. So potentially he might only be playing for one night a week, which I would think he'd still be able to manage, even with the travelling involved. And hopefully that's the case, because if we see Gary Anderson fully fit, then he's one of the greatest players ever to throw a dart, and an absolute joy to watch.
You mentioned Gary Anderson. One man who will be in the Premier League this year is Gerwyn Price. Now, we all remember roughly that Grand Slam final between Gary and Gerwyn. And last week, Gerwyn was fined £21,500 by the DRA and given a 3-month suspended ban. Now, obviously, do you think that will affect the way Gerwyn plays? Will he tone it down? Because obviously, if he commits another offence, that ban will be enforced.
Well, from what I understand, Gerwyn is pretty unrepentant, and in many ways I can completely understand why, because Gerwyn Price has played in his natural way. That's what Gerwyn Price does ever since he's been in the PDC. And now, all of a sudden, it happens in a high-profile tournament, and yes, it was more so. It was Gerwyn Price extra, but it happens in a high-profile tournament, and he is hit with a record-breaking ban. Now, the DRA, I've spoken to them. I've sought more clarification on how they reach this stuff. They say that the profile of the tournament itself is a massive factor in how they've reached this decision. And his win there not only helped him win more than $100,000 at the Grand Slam, but it's got him into the Premier League, in the top 6 in the world. It is a massive thing for Gerwyn Price. I have to say, I'm not sure there's any issue. Gary was certainly annoyed with Gerwyn Price's antics in the final, but I don't think you can. I think it's absolutely fanciful. It's guesswork to say that Gary lost the game because of what Gerwyn Price was doing. So I think he can feel hard done by. We're still waiting to see whether he appeals against it. I appreciate the DRA's point of view, but it's certainly a very contentious issue. And from what I've been told by the people involved, the DRA are adamant they've got this right. Gerwyn Price is adamant he's not done anything wrong. I can see this flaring up again. And if that happens, it will trigger his suspended ban, and we could have a major problem on our hands in that one of the top players in the world, a major winner, and one of the highest ranked players in the world, may not be involved in some of the biggest tournaments in the world at the start of this year, and we could end up regulating one of the top talents in the game out of the game. I don't know what's going to happen with it. I think it's going to be fascinating finding out. I mean, we're talking here ahead of their second night of the Masters. I can't wait to see what Gerwyn Price is like on stage, whether he does rein it in and tone it down, and whether he's able to do that when it's those pressure games. If he makes a final somewhere on the Euro Tour, or even makes a final of the Masters, or has a close game with Gary Anderson in the Premier League in Scotland. He's not a man who backs down, Gerwyn Price. So, look, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be fascinating finding out.
No, it certainly will, Dan. It certainly will. And just finally, now, we mentioned you're commentating all on the Pro Tour events, all the European Tour events. You see far more darts than a lot of pundits out there. I'm going to ask you. I'm going to put you on the spot now. 3 players to watch in 2019. Maybe 3 lesser players to watch, and why?
Right. Well, interesting. That is a tough one. Look, I've already mentioned. There are lots of players I'm really looking forward to seeing, because I think that the situations they are in make it fascinating. Going Price is one of them. Peter Wright, for the reasons I've already articulated. Durrant, obviously, and McGeaney, whom I've mentioned. But the one that was the standout player at Q School and has a point to prove after a year of being massively, massively disappointed in not getting his tour card the previous year is Jamie Hughes. Mm-hmm. He was spectacular at Q School. I saw him average 109 3 games running as he just stormed to his tour card. Nobody was beating him at Q School. It was like he'd been, it was like he'd been sat there brooding back home in Tipton, just furious with himself at not getting a tour card, and then just unleashed a year of frustration on the board and anybody who got in his way. I cannot wait to see this bloke in action on a regular basis because his level of performance, his top level of performance, can rival anyone in the world. I think he's going to be phenomenal this year, and I think you're going to see him challenging for titles. Whether he wins or not, I do not know. Rob Cross, really want to see Rob Cross now that he's got that 2 years out of the way. He's another man who is defending a lot of money, but I also think that the pressure is off him somewhat. He's not the world champion anymore, and so he can just go out and just do what he did in his first year in the PDC, where he won 5 titles, including, of course, the biggest one of the lot. If you're looking at somebody else, I want to pick one of the young lads, really. I mean, yes, you can't really pick Luke Humphreys or anybody like that because they've already made their names. Dimitri Vandenberg is a 2-time World Youth Champion. He's got to start performing it on the floor events. Dimitri can barely qualify for things like the Euro Tours because he doesn't do enough. He has to get his act together in those. We all know how fabulous a player he is, and if he can just start qualifying for stage events, he can go and win them. We know he's got the game to do that. If I was going to pick 3 players to watch, they'd probably be it. It'd be Jozza, Jamie Hughes, Rob Cross and Dimitri Vandenberg. It's big years for them, all for different reasons, but I all think they've got the game to genuinely go and win titles, and big ones at that.
No, it should be a fascinating year, Dan. Really looking forward to seeing it all unfold. Looking forward to hearing you on commentary for the Euro Tour, which resumes next month, I believe. So
it does, and we've got updates and a bit of comms on TalkSport 2 as well for the Premier League. So Thursday nights and the weekends pretty much covered for the next 4 months.
Perfect. Many thanks, Dan, and enjoy the rest of the Masters, mate. Thank you.
Great stuff. Cheers, Josh. Bye-bye.
Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry.
Well, there you go, folks. That was Josh's interview with Dan Dawson. Some great insights there, Josh. I was particularly interested in what you discussed first, really. You put the question to him about the changing of the guard in darts, and Dan seemed to counter that and talk about players that, have maybe sort of dropped out and lost their tour card, but are now sort of finding their way back onto the scene.
Yeah, I thought what Dan said was a really interesting point. I mean, Michael Barnard was one man he mentioned, and obviously Michael qualified for the World Championship this year, 10 years after making his previous appearance through the Challenge Tour. That gives the players who've missed out on a PDC Q School, who are maybe lacking a bit of confidence, it gives them a platform to try and get that winning mentality back, get their confidence back. But it's still a massively competitive circuit. We saw the Challenge Tour, it started last weekend, and you had people like John Park, Kevin Painter, Andy Hamilton, Jamie Caven, Wes Newton. It really established winners of the past all competing on it. So yeah, you certainly wouldn't write these players off, but obviously the youngsters are coming through now, they're fearless.
He mentioned Wayne Jones and Alan Tabern as well. Sounds like Dan's going to look forward to seeing them in action this year. Yeah,
they both also qualified for the World Championship last year. Wayne lost to Devon Peterson in the first round, and Alan Tabern won his first match and then lost to Michael Van Gerwen. But gave a good account of himself, got a set over MVG in that World Championship.
Neil, when Dan was talking about Q School, obviously he mentioned Durrant, probably the most high-profile one to pick up his tour card. A phrase I found quite interesting that Dan used, Neil, was Durrant's going to have to get used to not being the best player in the PDC. I found that an interesting comment. How do you think Durrant will cope with that? It
is an interesting comment, but he made he made an even more interesting comment, and probably something that no one had really considered, or certainly I hadn't, was that he's gone from the euphoria of winning the BDO World Championships to then having to knuckle down and get his and qualify at Q School. And I think that says a lot about his mental resilience, that, he's managed to get himself up shortly after such a euphoric moment to do it. So, yeah, it may take a bit of time to adjust to the fact that he's not going to be as dominant as maybe he would be if he carried on in the BDO. But as I say, I think that was a really interesting insight from Dan, and a point that, as I say, we probably hadn't really considered about how he's managed to get him drag himself through it after such a high.
Neil, anything else from Dan's interview there that perhaps caught your eye?
Yeah, interesting what he was saying about the time it takes to adjust. Firstly, to playing on the floor, he said it takes a couple of years, and then a couple of years to adjust to playing on the stage in front of big crowds. And he was obviously very complimentary in terms of the experience that the European Tour gives. So, again, something that you don't really think about when people are put on a big stage and they don't necessarily perform, is that they do benefit from the exposure of events like the European Tour to do so. And again, I like the psychology of sport, and I think that's another great example of where psychology comes into it, because you can be a great darts player on the floor, and we do see that. We see some good players averaging 105, 110, 115 on the floor, and not being able to replicate that on the big stages. So very interesting.
Josh, Dan obviously mentioned Gary Anderson. The news is a few days old now, but in terms of this podcast, it's the first time we've heard mention of the injury to Gary Anderson that's forced him to pull out of this weekend's Masters. Yeah,
I mean it's an ongoing issue for Gary. I think we remember at the World Championship, the previous one, Phil Taylor's last World Championship, Gary lost to Phil in the quarterfinals, and he was plagued with his back throughout, and it really hampered his start of the Premier League campaign as well. I think Gary was almost contemplating pulling out of last year's Premier League early on with the back. He seemed to get it resolved. Obviously won 3 titles last year, the UK Open, the match play in the Champions League of Darts, but it's obviously a problem that's resurfaced at the World Championship, and it's something he really needs to kind of try and resolve, and I don't know whether it's possible to. Obviously, I believe Dan said he's having physio on it, I think 3 times a week, so obviously he's taking it very seriously. He's trying to get it resolved as best he can, but Gary Anderson's probably the second best player in the world, I think we'd all agree. We want to see him up there playing his best darts and challenging Michael van Gerwen and the others for the big major titles, so hopefully Gary can get it sorted out.
Absolutely. And Josh, I had real concern in Dan's voice when he was discussing the DRA earlier and the issue with Gerwin Price, and he hopefully not, but he does worry that it might be a bit of an issue in the future.
Well, it's a difficult one because obviously, as we say, Gerwin's ban, it's a suspended ban, so as long as he doesn't commit another offence in the next 6 months, the ban will not take force. But obviously Gerwin's competing in the Premier League week in, week out in front of huge crowds. I think they're all going to be on his back. He's going to get a lot of grief from the audience. Obviously, he's got the European Tour as well, the Pro Tour, pressurised situations. It's going to be very difficult for him to rein it in because he's a naturally emotional player. It gives him a boost, when he celebrates. Obviously, I think the Grand Slam final was maybe a little bit overkill, but he is an emotional player, and that's what brings out the best in him. So he's going to have to try and rein that in to an extent, or he might not, as Dan said. It'll be really interesting to see how it pans out, because he might lose that 10-20% of his game from trying to rein it in, but obviously he runs the risk, if he does commit another offence, of being out of action for 3 months.
Neil, Josh asked Dan to name 2 or 3 players that he's looking forward to seeing, possibly outside of the major players that he's looking forward to coming through this year. Ties in quite nicely with what you were saying a moment ago about being able to perform on the floor and then converting it onto the big stage. Jamie Hughes was the name that he mentioned there, who's had an absolutely fantastic tournament there, averaging 109s and absolutely blitzing the board. Can we convert it onto the big stage?
I think so. I think, as I said, the ability is clearly there. When you've got players that can perform consistently on the floor. So then it becomes a psychological battle to repeat that form on stage. And no doubt a lot of these guys have got sports psychologists that they're using just to give them that extra edge when they need to on the big stage.
Well, for Jamie Hughes, he's been an established player in the BDO. I think he was in the BDO top 4 before he switched to the PDC. Mark McGuinney's another one that falls into that category. Dan mentioned him as well. He's obviously top seed at Lakeside, and he's reached a World Championship final. He won BDO majors, so he's able to produce on the big TV stage, but he's a far more dangerous prospect on the floor than he is on the big stage, I think. So I think McGuinney's going to be a real threat as well.
I also think that when players switch from BDO to PDC, that some of them may come in with a feeling that they need to prove themselves. They're coming into what is the elite organisation in the sport. So it's very easy to get suffocated by events and mindsets going on around you. So not always easy to reproduce when it's needed. But once you get past that point and you start to turn and start to get victories on the stage, things can be different.
Interesting to note, Dan, pulling out Rob Cross as one to watch as well. Now, that might seem a bit of a silly suggestion. Of course, he's one to watch. He's a former world champion. He's a Premier League player, and he's going to feature heavily in a lot of the majors this year. But it is one to watch, isn't it, with Rob Cross, because he's got the monkey off of his back now of not being the world champion. Yeah. Let's see how he gets on performing without that pressure.
Yeah, and I think we discussed this on the last episode, that I think he was overwhelmed to a certain extent with everything that was expected of him as a world champion. So I think we all said that we felt, as you say, with that monkey off his back, that we might see an upturn in his form. Interestingly, he's gone out tonight at the Masters, losing to
Joe Cullen.
Yeah.
What was the score in that one, Josh?
10-6 to Cullen.
So that's a shock.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, listen, that's a great interview, Josh. Well done. Our thanks to Dan for taking the time to speak to Josh on the phone. Dan, you're always very welcome on the JDP, and we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Hi, it's Adrian Lewis, and you're listening to Josh's Dartistry podcast.
Right, we've just mentioned it, gentlemen. The Masters that is taking place as we speak, Josh. Started last night on the Friday night. We're recording this on the Saturday night, aren't we? So, started last night. Where are we?
Well, obviously, it's still at the first round stage at the moment, John. We had 4 first round games on Friday night, and we saw Daryl Gurney lose 10-8 to Dave Chisnell. Chisney coming back from 6-2 down to defeat Superchin in that one. Mensa Sulovic was incredible against Simon Whitlock, 106 average, beat Simon 10-1. Bit of a whooping, that one. Then we also saw Michael Van Gerwen beat Johnny Clayton 10-5 in a really good game from Michael. Well, I say really good game. His scoring was really good, average 99, but by his high standards, his doubling was a little bit hit and miss, but he was still very comfortable. And Stephen Bunting, who was filling in for Gary Anderson, who pulled out. Stephen Bunting beat Darren Webster 10-9. A real nervy game. 62 missed darts at double between them. So that was Friday night. Obviously, we've started off seeing James Wade beating Gerwin Price 10-7. Price launched a bit of a fight back from 9-4 down. Wade ran out a comfortable winner. And we've just seen, as Neil mentioned, Rob Cross lose 10-6 to Joe Cullen. So it'll be Cullen against Wade in the quarterfinals. And we've got Michael Smith on stage now against Ian White, and he will play the winner of Peter Wright or Adrian Lewis, which is coming up later on.
We had it on the telly not too long ago, the Wade Price match. Probably didn't pan out as some people were hoping. I'm sure some people were hoping for fireworks, seeing as we had 2 potential pantomime villains from previous tournaments. But it was an entertaining game, but there certainly wasn't any needle on the stage, was there?
No, and it was very interesting to listen to James Wade's interview, where they were discussing that, as you said, that Gerwin Price is very much the pantomime villain. It was only a few short weeks back at the World Championships, James Wade was in that position himself.
I think someone on Twitter earlier said it was a DRA derby tonight, which was quite a good summarisation, I think.
Okay, yeah. So we are more than halfway through this competition, so we'll keep our eye on that. I'm sure Josh will be posting a report for the after the final regarding how the tournament went, the winner, and any standout performances. Neil, do you think you'll be able to give us some in-play odds?
I certainly hope so, yeah.
Because I know there's not much darts left in the tournament, but let's have a quick look when we come to the odds section of who the potential winners are according to the bookmakers. Yeah.
Yep.
We cannot ignore the fact, gentlemen, that the Premier League begins very, very soon, February the 7th.
Yep, Thursday.
This coming Thursday, Josh.
Yep, the Premier League kicks off at Newcastle's Metro Radio Arena. I'll run you through the opening night games. We kick off with James Wade against Raymond van Barneveld, 2 former champions kicking off the tournament. Then it's Gerwin Price against Daryl Gurney. Interesting to note that Price has won 7 of his 9 games against Gurney, only losing once. Third on, we have a really good game, hopefully, between Gary Anderson and Mensur Suljovic, a repeat of the World Match Play final. Obviously, that's dependent on Gary's fitness. Then the headline act, really, is Michael Van Gerwen against Michael Smith in a repeat of last year's Premier League final and World Championship final. And then the night concludes with a clash between the world's number 2 and 3 as Rob Cross takes on Peter Wright.
I have to ask, with the Premier League being on Thursday nights, does that cause an issue for you?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, no.
See,
bit of a clash.
He's rattled there.
No, I will be working for Sky every Thursday on the Premier League, and I will be missing Arsenal against Barty Borisov in a couple of weeks, which I am devastated about.
That's a mouth-watering tie, that, isn't it? That's the kind of game that you live for as a football fan.
Humdinger.
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago, John, that you were losing to these sort of teams in the Europa League. So
I don't remember that at all. Neil, you'll be able to give us some updated odds, will you, for the Premier League in the odds section? Excellent stuff. Look forward to that. Josh, you just mentioned Anderson. You said, regarding his health. Let's look at worst case scenario. He can't compete. What happens?
Well, obviously, then the PDC have a decision to make about who to draft in. I think the obvious candidate would be Simon Whitlock.
Well, hang on. I suppose the first question
Or
before
are
we
you
talk about
asking if it's one or
if
2
it's
weeks?
one night, because we have had it in the past where a player has been ill and not been able to play their match.
And play catch up.
Yeah, and played catch up from there.
Yeah, I think what could happen then if it was one night, for instance, one player may then double up and play obviously Mensah or Sulovic as well as their other game. But obviously the issue would be is, say, in a couple of weeks, if Gary still wasn't fit, what happens then? We had Wayne Mardle pull out the other year. Remember, Wayne was obviously very unwell, so he had to pull out. So hopefully it doesn't come to that with Gary, because he's going to just focus on the Premier League. So hopefully, like Dan said in his interview, Gary hopefully should be able to manage one game a week, but we just don't know.
I don't know how we would predict with the lottery of how it's selected who would be his replacement.
Well, I think the obvious candidate would be Simon Whitlock. He's obviously
he's the one that a lot of people felt missed out harshly the most. So I think he would be the immediate person in people's thoughts. But as we all know, gentlemen, it doesn't go on rankings.
No, it doesn't. I think obviously the other contenders. Obviously you've got Adrian Lewis. He's coming to a little bit of form again. Obviously he's into the top 16. Dave Chisnell. He's played pretty well over the last few months. Obviously, Dave's a former Premier League semi-finalist. And a left field suggestion would be Glen Durrant, obviously former BDO World Champion. I know he's only just come over. He's only just come over to the PDC, but he's a proven 3-time BDO World Champion.
It would certainly freshen things up, and I'd like to see it. However, my thoughts remain.
I think if the worst case scenario happened and Gary was forced to pull out the Premier League as a whole, I think Whitlock would be the obvious candidate.
Well, you say that, but if you're looking for a form player and someone who's going to come in and challenge, he's not exactly covered himself in glory last night with a 10-1 spanking.
Yeah, no, Whitlock, he struggled last night, but he's still a quality operator. He obviously hasn't had the best last couple of months, obviously losing in the first round or his first game at the World Championship, and then obviously losing to Mensah last night. But you can't really base it on one game. I think Whitlock being the world number 9 that he is at the moment, I think you would merit a spot if Gary did pull out. But listen, it's all ifs, buts and maybes, and hopefully Gary is fit because he's one of the best players in the world. We want to see him competing and trying to win his third Premier League title this year.
Okay, well, keep your eyes on Josh's website. I'm sure there'll be some news regarding Gary Anderson's participation in the Premier League competition. If anything changes on that matter, I'm sure Josh you'll announce it on there. Chaps, let's talk about our prediction competition. So last year we ran a Premier League prediction competition. The three of us would give our winners and a score. And we go up against the JDP listeners. Neil, I believe you won the competition last year, didn't you?
I did, yes.
Right, and because of that, we're going to change the format. So to try and avoid Neil winning this year, what we're going to do, and there's going to be prizes available to the winner. We're going to play. We're still going to do a prediction competition, but we're going to change it slightly, and it's going to be called the JDP Last Man Standing competition. And the way it works is, for week 1, we will ask you to pick one player you think will win. Okay, so and if that player wins their opening night match, you then go through to night 2 and you are able to pick a winner from night 2. You are not allowed to pick the same person again. So, for example, if you were to pick Van Gerwen on night 1, you would not be able to pick Van Gerwen on night 2 should you have been successful on night 1. Eventually, after everyone's submitted their answers, and we'll be taking part in this as well, gentlemen, so you need to start having a little think about who you're going to pick out for night 1. Eventually, we will narrow it down to the last man standing, and whoever is the last man standing, we will issue them with a prize. If last man standing occurs before the competition has reached its conclusion, then we'll relaunch it again, and we can start over afresh. Josh?
One question, John. If it's a draw, are you still eliminated?
If your player draws,
yes.
Yeah, you're out.
So they've got to win.
Got to win. Must be a winner, Neil, yeah?
Absolutely.
And then what you need to remember is if you enter on night 1, you're in until the end of the competition. Unfortunately, you can't enter if you don't enter night 1. So if you want to enter on night 2, you can't. We're going to have the same group of people all the way through the competition until we come to our last man standing. In the event that you fail to give us an answer, so let's say, for example, your player that you pick for night 1 wins, we then need your pick for night 2, a different player. If you fail to get in contact with us, Neil, I think we mentioned earlier we were going to automatically assign somebody. So let's say you went for Van Gerwen on night 1, we'd issue you automatically with alphabetically the next player. Is that correct?
That is correct. It will be done. You will get a default value.
That's the word I was looking for. Default.
You will get a default value of someone nearest the top of the alphabet. Now, if it's Anderson, and it will be done on the surname, and you've already picked of Anderson, it will just go to the next person. So, rather than lose people from the tournament, we will give them that default option to give them an opportunity.
I think what we need to do, Josh, a full explanation of the sort of written rules. Maybe we could tweet from the Josh's Dartistry account.
Yep, I'll send something out over the weekend.
Yeah, that'd be good, and then everyone can sort of have a think about it and get their full understanding. Josh, have you got the opening night fixtures to hand?
I have, yes.
Because I do think that for this episode we should give our last man standing selections now, the three of us.
Okay, shall I read out the fixtures again?
Read out the opening fixtures, please.
Okay, so it's James Wade against Raymond van Barneveld. Gerwin Price against Daryl Gurney. Gary Anderson against Mensur Suljovic. Michael van Gerwen against Michael Smith. And Peter Wright against Rob Cross.
Right, so I'll tell you what. Let's go with the man himself first. Josh, who are you picking for your last man standing? Must win for you to get through to night 2.
It's a tough one, this, John. I'm going to go for Mensur Suljovic.
Mensur Suljovic. Can we make a note of that? Neil Connor.
James Wade.
And I am going to go for James Wade.
Okie doke.
So myself and Neil are back in James Wade to beat Barney. Josh, you are back in Mensur to beat
Gary Anderson.
Gary
maybe.
Anderson.
You might get a bye, you never know.
You might be playing Whitlock.
I still back Mensur to beat him 10-1.
Okay, so that's our selections, guys. Hopefully you got the gist of that. As I said, we will be posting the rules up on the Josh's Dartistry Twitter account. And if you can send in your responses to us, that would be absolutely fantastic at Josh's Dartistry on Twitter. Look forward to that. And Josh, hopefully Neil's not going to win this time.
Fingers crossed. Come on, Barney.
Neil, what's going to be the prize? Have we still got some mugs kicking around?
Yeah, I think we've got some mugs. So
might even get a T-shirt done. What do you reckon?
We could do a T-shirt.
Okay, that is your Premier League preview, and we look forward to it kicking off this coming Thursday in Newcastle.
Hi, this is Rod Studd from Sky Sports, and you're listening to Josh's Dartistry podcast.
Okay then, gents, let's get some odds.
Cool, what are the odds?
Okay then, let's throw it over to our resident odds checker, Mr. Neil Connor.
Thanks, John. So we've spoken at length tonight about the Masters. Sky Bet are giving us some outright odds for the Masters, which I'll quickly run through. The 2-1 on favourite is the world champion, Michael van Gerwen. Second favourite, Michael Smith, 6-1. Ian White, an outsider, at 40-1. He's currently 5-all. With Michael Smith tonight, so it's a tight game, and 40-1, reasonably big odds. Just some other notable ones: James Wade through tonight, 16-1, and Joe Cullen 20-1.
Anything take your fancy there, Josh? Who'd you fancy?
I think Michael Smith, obviously we mentioned him in the bottom half of the draw. He's obviously reached Premier League final, World Championship final last year. I can see it being a rematch of the World Championship final between Smith and Van Gerwen.
Fantastic. Anything Premier League related for us, Neil?
Yep. So switching over to Sporting Bet, bringing us these odds. Premier League outright. Van Gerwen 4-3 on favourite.
This is to win, yeah?
To win the Premier League.
Okay.
Gary Anderson still reasonably fancied. Probably longer odds than he's been for a while. 5-1. So there's some value there if he comes back fit.
I was going to say, with the announcement of the injury, I reckon that's probably changed over the last few days.
Yeah, so if he does take part, 5-1 is a very healthy price.
That's good value there, considering he's world number 4.
Definitely, and if he won it twice, won 3 majors last year, definitely.
So just running through the others: Michael Smith 9-1, Rob Cross 10-1, Peter Wright 12-1, so quite big odds on Wright. Mensur Suljovic in good form last night, 25-1. Daryl Gurney, 40-1. James Wade, 50-1. Raymond van Barneveld, also 50-1. And the outsider, Gerwin Price, 66-1.
Any Premier League specials for us, Neil?
Yeah, I've got some of those. So the player to be bottom after week 9. So come on then, who would you predict?
Which is Judgment Night, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who would you predict to be bottom? Michael van Gerwen is 200 to 1.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, I'm going to say it. If you look at the rankings, Barney.
Josh?
Well, we're predicting who will be bottom.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Gerwin Price.
Yeah, so Gerwin Price, I think it was bottom last year, wasn't he, as well?
Yeah.
3 to 1. Interestingly,
So is that 3 to 1 favourite?
3 to 1 favourite to finish bottom.
Yeah,
Gerwin
right.
Price 3 to 1. Raymond van Barneveld is actually the favourite, John, 11 to 4.
Thought he might be.
Mensa Sulovic, who finished 9th last year, or was in 9th place on after Judgment Night, 8 to 1, and I think that probably reflects the fact that he performed better than his position actually ended up being.
What's Peter Wright?
10 to 1. You don't fancy him?
I don't think he'll be eliminated. I think Peter Wright's a quality player. I'm a big fan of his, but he has been struggling over recent months. He almost got eliminated last year, and if he loses his first couple of games, he could be under threat. I wouldn't be putting money on it, but I think 10 to 1's not bad value.
I'm looking for a big year from Peter this year. I think, listen, still a fine darts player, don't get me wrong, but probably had a little bit more of a disappointing year than many would have expected, Josh, in 2018.
Yeah, I mean, he still reached 2 TV finals,
Yeah.
obviously at the World Grand Prix and the Champions League of Darts, but he had a lot of early exits in majors, particularly in the latter stages of last year, and as I mentioned, he had quite a disappointing Premier League campaign, and 2017 was the best year of his career by far.
Couple more specials, again, Sporting Bet. Will any player score a free dart average of over 108.5?
Printing money, that is.
2 to 1 on for that to happen. And then something a bit different, tournament winning checkout. So if you think it's going to be green that's hit on the final dart.
Could give you odds on anything these days, wouldn't they?
Green and over 40.5 is 5 to 1. Green and under 40.5, 7 to 2. Red and over 40.5, 9 to 4. And red and under 40.5, 3 to 2. So with the colour of the double and the number of the checkout. So
there you go. If you like a bit of variety and want something a little bit different in life, then you can bet on something like that. Neil, do we have the potential for a 9-darter this coming Thursday in Newcastle? Can you give us any odds on that occurring?
I've got the odds for a 9-dart finish in the tournament overall. It's 17 to 20, yes. Yeah. 17 to 20,
not going to get any value across the tournament, but I'm thinking specifically for the matches that are occurring on Thursday night in Newcastle.
It's usually around about 33 to 1. That's sort of like the standard sort of price on the night.
For this Thursday in Newcastle, it's 10 to 1 on that there will not be a 9-darter, and it's 19 to 4 that there will be. So nearly 5 to 1.
I wouldn't be having any money on that.
Why not?
Hasn't been a 9-darter in the Premier League since, I think, 2016.
Got to happen sometime, Josh.
It is.
Got to happen sometime.
Very true, and I suppose with there's 10 of the best players in the world, so if anyone's going to do it.
There we go. Anything else for us, Neil?
No, that's all for this episode.
Wonderful. Thank you, Neil. So if you fancy a little flutter, hopefully Neil's pointed you in the right direction there. Please remember to gamble responsibly, and of course, as ever, when the fun stops, stop.
Cool. What are the odds?
Model, and you're listening to Josh's Dartistry.
Right then, folks.
It is time for Challenge Josh. Challenge Josh.
Right then, Josh, your favourite part of the show. Last episode 10, I seem to remember you dropping 2 or 3 points at least.
I think I dropped 2 in the end.
I thought we got 11.
No, that was the previous one.
Yeah. No, he only dropped a couple last time, man. It wasn't a bad performance last time. Got hung up on a couple. But let's throw it over to a resident quizmaster, Mr. Neil Connor.
Okay then, here we go. Challenge Josh. Episode 11.
Episode 11.
Still waiting for a maximum score.
No, I think I've got a maximum
No,
score before.
he's definitely got a max before. Definitely got a max. But early days, don't get me wrong, he's not had one recently. He's not covered himself in glory recently. But
Well, you say glory, hang on a minute.
early days of the show, he definitely had a maximum.
I did, yeah.
Okay, so tonight it's going to be very topical. It's going to be
Arsenal Football Club. No, sorry, go on.
It's going to be questions about the PDC Masters tournament.
Topical.
Okie doke.
So I think you'll have a chance this week. I think I'd be surprised if you didn't get 15.
Oh, dear.
So let's start. Question 1, and I don't want you looking at the telly because you may get a couple of answers from that.
I would turn it off, but I'm quite engrossed in Adrian Lewis leading Peter Wright 3-1 at the moment.
Yeah, but I think it's about to go 3-2, to be honest.
But Josh has got his back to it, so
okay,
we'll be fine.
question 1. Who are the sponsors of this year's Masters?
Bet Victor.
I thought it was Unibet.
They used to be.
Well, as soon as I looked at the TV, I saw 2 massive Bet Victor signs.
Well, on that, but I'm sure when we were talking about it earlier, I described it as the Unibet
you called it the Bet Victor, I'm pretty sure, yeah. It used to be the Unibet last year.
Okay, well, if I made a mistake earlier on in the show, then I apologise. Anyway, correct, Neil. Yes, 1 out of 1. Excellent stuff. Let's move on. I'm assuming that's probably the easiest question on the list.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, let's have 14 hard ones then, please. Here we go. Question number 2.
Where is the Masters held?
Milton Keynes.
Can you be a bit more specific?
I was going to say, I need more than that.
The Marshall Arena MK.
Very good.
I think he's trying to get away with murder there.
I was thinking about the postcode, but then...
Okay, let's move on to question number 3.
Who is bidding for a 5th successive victory?
Michael van Gerwen.
Yep, of course it is.
3 out of 3, very, very easy so far.
3 out of 3, excellent start. Let's go, please, Neil, to question number 4.
Question 4. What is the prize on offer for the winner of the 2019 Masters?
Tough one, this.
Cuddly toy and a set of saucepans.
£100,000?
Oh dear.
Early miss from Josh.
Wow, I'm shocked, Josh. I am shocked.
What did you think it was then?
What? I'm not sure. Listen, I'm not shocked that it's not £100,000. I'm shocked you got it wrong.
Well, what is it then, Neil?
Oh, no, whoa, let me have a stab. £75,000.
£60,000.
It's closer than you. That's not a lot, is it?
No, I thought it would be more than that for a top 16. Oh, well.
I suppose they just weighed out a hell of a lot of money for the World Championship, so they've got to...
No doubt he'll be Googling it when we go off air.
They've recouped some of that with Gerwin Price's DRA fine.
Maybe that's why they're looking at the DRA fine so they can get a bit more cash back. Okay, so we got one wrong, Neil. That was question number 4. So let's go in for question number 5.
Okay, so 3 points for question 5. Can you name the 3 debutants at this year's Masters? I think it's quite easy.
Joe Cullen.
That's one of them.
Darren Webster.
That's the other one.
Let me see. And Johnny Clayton.
All 3.
Very good.
Good job. How have they started those 3 guys?
Obviously, Clayton lost to Van Gerwen.
Van Gerwen, so he's gone.
Darren Webster lost 10-9 to Bunting,
Yep.
and we've just seen Joe Cullen beat Rob Cross.
Oh, so Cullen survives.
Yep.
Indeed.
Cullen survives. Okay, question number 6 then, please, Neil.
So this question was going to be who replaced Gary Anderson, but I think we covered that earlier in the podcast. So
sorry about that. Did I ruin your quiz?
I knew that one.
As adaptable as I am, I've got another question.
Well done, Neil.
So who has lost 2 Masters finals?
Raymond van Barneveld.
He's lost 2. Has he ever won it?
He hasn't, but I mean,
No.
it's a very good record. It's only been going 5 years, so to reach 2 is very good.
6
very
years,
good.
I think.
6 years. He's only been in 5 though, because obviously he's not qualified this year. But on both occasions, he's lost to Van Gerwen.
Okay, regardless, that is correct. Well done, Josh. That was question 6, wasn't it, Neil?
It was, yeah.
Right, let's move on to question number 7.
When was the inaugural Masters tournament held?
Do you know what inaugural means, Josh?
I do, thank you. Please don't insult my intelligence.
Just thought I'd check.
It was 2014.
I love this question.
Let me re-ask the question. Do you know what inaugural means, Josh?
I know what's happened here because they held it. It was James Wade won it, and then a few months later it was held again.
So I believe that the tournament was originally held in November.
Yeah.
And now it takes
January.
place in January, February.
So the first one was in 2013.
November 2013.
Oh,
bit
Josh.
unfortunate there.
I love it.
Stitch up.
So the current state of play is we've had 7 questions, one of which was worth 3 points. So Josh is 7 out of 9 with 6 questions to go.
7 out of 9.
Oh dear.
Okay, let's question number 8, Neil. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go.
In the inaugural tournament held in November 2013,
Thanks for that, Neil.
not in 2014, who won?
James Wade. Oh, hang on. No.
Oh, hang on a minute.
No.
Hang on. Hang on.
I'd like to.
He's all over the show.
Phil Taylor, I apologise.
Neil, you are quizmaster. I'm going to hand it over to you. Whether you have a rule in Challenge Josh that you must take the first answer, that is completely down to you. I will leave it to the quizmaster's discretion.
Okay, so I think I have to take the first answer, which was James Wade, and was incorrect.
Oh, Josh.
Who was it?
Phil Taylor.
Who did he beat?
I'm trying to think now. It might have been James Wade in the final.
No, it was Adrian Lewis.
I'm thinking of the 24.
Oh, we're going to need to edit this.
We might need to re-record Challenge Josh. You might end up with 5 questions right.
November 2013, Phil Taylor beat Adrian Lewis 10-1.
I was thinking of the next one, which was Wade against beating King, unfortunately.
But that's not what I was looking for.
Yeah, but I did correct it very quickly.
Okay, next question.
Question number 9.
What is the qualifying criteria for being entered into the Masters?
It's the top 16 on the PDC Order of Merit.
Okay, very good.
I feel there's more coming. Hang on.
And what is the and how is the draw made up?
Well, it's obviously number 1 seed plays number 16 seed, number 2 plays 15, and so on.
Very good.
Oh, correct answer. It's been a while since we've had one of those, Neil.
Thank you, John.
Okay, let's move on to question number 10, please, Neil.
Question 10 refers to the format of the tournament. So can you tell me what the format is for the first round, which is effectively the last 16 and last 8, and then for the semi-finals and the final?
Yep, so the first round is best of 19 legs, as is the quarterfinals. And then the semi-finals and final are best of 21 legs, first to 11.
Pretty comprehensive answer there, Neil. I think you've done very well with that question.
Yeah, that was very good, very good.
Okay, Neil, let's have question number 11, please.
In 2013 and 2014, the tournament was not held in Milton Keynes. Can you tell me where the tournament took place?
Scotland.
Is that specific enough for you, Neil?
No.
Oh, the drama.
Shock horror. Glasgow.
Is that specific enough for you, Neil? Or do you need a venue?
Well, I was looking for a venue, but we're not even in the right city, so...
Oh, no.
It's just unfortunate.
Hang on. So, Scotland is correct. Is Scotland correct?
Scotland is correct,
Okay.
but Glasgow
is definitely incorrect.
So I'm kind of right.
No, you're not. You're nowhere near right. Okay, give us the town and the venue.
The Royal Highland Centre in Edinburgh.
Oh, well, one of the two. Wasn't it?
So we got another question wrong. How many's he got wrong now?
4. So I think we've got 2 questions left. So I think he's on 9 out of 13.
Okay, here we go. Next question.
Who has thrown the highest winning average in the history of the Masters? I'm looking for only the player.
Highest winning average in the final?
In
Not
Masters
tournament average,
history.
just final average.
No, Masters in every.
So any
could
round.
be any round in any tournament that's been.
Well, that's
held.
not the winning average then, is it?
I think it means in terms of winning a match.
I think your question's poorly worded, personally.
Michael van Gerwen?
Correct. So Michael van Gerwen averaged 112.49.
Was it against Chizzy?
No,
Gary?
it was against Raymond van Barneveld in the 2015 final.
Yeah.
That's Raymond van Barneveld.
Can't do a lot about 112 average, can you?
Making excuses again. Okay, last question. Who has thrown the highest average in losing a match in the PDC Masters?
Dave Chisnell?
Do you know when and who against?
I'm pretty sure it was against Michael van Gerwen. I can't remember the year of the it was against Van Gerwen. It was a brilliant match.
Yeah,
Well
that's
done.
correct. Well done. Well remembered.
So the highest average in losing a match at the PDC Masters was Dave Chisnell. It was versus Michael van Gerwen in the quarter-final in 2015. And the average was 108.09. So well done.
Very good effort from Chizzy.
11.
Now, Josh, I can't help but point out, normally the sort of formula for Challenge Josh is the questions begin fairly easy and they get harder as we go along, and you tend to stutter on questions sort of 13, 14, 15. Wasn't the case this evening.
No, it wasn't. I mean, I made a bit of a mess of the prize money. I was quite surprised at 60 grand, to be honest. I
don't think the questions were unfair either.
No, they weren't unfair, but...
I bet you're right, not worth getting out of bed for, 60 grand.
Well, it's quite surprising when you think a lot of the tournaments, I mean, obviously it's quite lucrative now. The prize money's gone up in a lot. So I was surprised by that. I should have got it was a bit of a slip with the Wade Taylor one. I corrected myself, but it was...
Jumped in a bit early there, didn't you?
It was too late in the eyes of Neil.
I can see how he's going to be next time. He's going to be 100% certain before he opens his mouth.
Just take a deep breath. Give yourself a moment. There's no rush. We're not going anywhere. Plenty of time.
And it's just the way I live my life, John. It's full
in the
throttle.
fast lane, yeah. In the fast lane. Okay, well, thank you, Neil. Well done for putting those questions together. You managed to outfox our expert again, so well done. I'm sure you'll be very pleased with that.
I am delighted, and I look forward to next episode.
Challenge Josh.
You're listening to Josh's Dartistry. Don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook by going to the Josh's Dartistry page. You can follow us on Twitter at Josh's Dartistry, or go to the website www.joshisdartistry.com for all the latest news and insight into the world of darts. You can also leave us a comment or a question via our voicemail box. Just call 07739 738 329 and leave us a message, and we may play it live on air. Now back to the show.
Right then, guys, let's get stuck into some news.
In the news.
Okay, Josh, we begin in the news this episode with the sad news of the passing of Alan Norris's wife, Cara.
Yeah, I found out that Alan's wife was very unwell over the course of the World Championships. Alan showed a huge amount of courage just to be there at the Alexandra Palace in the circumstances. But yeah, obviously very sad news, and thoughts and our best wishes are with Alan and his family at this time.
Yeah, of course it is. Our sympathies from all of us here on the JDP. Neil, we're sitting here watching the Masters. I've just seen Norris in the crowd, actually.
Yeah, he was watching. I don't know if it was this game, the Lewis
Smith against White. I think.
I think it was the Smith v White game that the camera panned to Alan.
Okay, let's move on. The opening Pro Tour weekend, Josh, we want to have a chat about.
Yep, that all kicks off next weekend. We've got 30 Players' Championship events this year. I mean, in the past it was 22 last year, but they've scrapped the 6 UK Open qualifiers. It's now all tour card holders are automatically qualified for the UK Open, so that means more Players' Championship events. There's a couple of big names absent: Adrian Lewis, Darren Webster and Jamie Hughes, a man we mentioned earlier. They've all struggled due to the new online registration format.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think Lewis, Webster and Hughes have all kind of fallen foul to not being able to register online. I don't know how it's happened. I think it's obviously maybe their error, because all the other tour card holders have managed to enter without any issues. But
I would assume that, particularly somebody like Lewis, that they've got, I don't know if Lewis has got a PA that does that kind of stuff for him. I can't imagine.
Well, his manager's Keith Deller, but I'm not sure. I think I saw online, I think someone asked Adrian's wife and she said he usually enters it himself. So I don't know what the issue was, but obviously it'll be a shame to see those 3 players missing out.
Very strange. Okay, Josh, tell me a story about JDP favourite Paul Lim.
Paul Lim, yep, the man, the myth, the legend. Paul Lim turned 65 just last week, and he's made a flying start to the PDC Asian Tour. Obviously, that's how he qualified. For the World Championship last year via the PDC Asian Tour Order of Merit. The opening 2 events were held in Seoul last weekend. In the first event, he reached the final, losing to Royden Lamb, but he averaged 105.3 in that final, so real high quality there. Then on the second day, on the Sunday, he won the title. En route, he beat Mikuru Suzuki, we mentioned, the Women's World Champion, 5-4 in the quarterfinals, but he only dropped 9 legs in 7 matches, so brilliant from Paul Lim. He tops the PDC Asian Tour Order of Merit after the opening weekend, and as a result, he's on course to qualify again for the PDC World Championship at the age of 65. Superb.
Wonderful story. Like a fine wine.
He really is. He's a brilliant character. Obviously, the first 9-darter, remember, the first World Championship 9-darter. He's etched in history at the World Championship, and it'll be great to see him at the Ali Pali again this year, hopefully.
Yeah, good stuff. Always good to hear good news regarding Paul. Guys, I've also wanted to have a quick chat with you. Now, this wasn't on the agenda, so I apologise for throwing you a curveball. Since we last met, we've had the 2019 PDC Annual Awards.
Okie doke.
And I thought we should touch on that. Now, Josh, I know you probably know who won what, because obviously you've got your eyes on the prize a little bit more. But what I'd like to do is throw some of the awards open, particularly to Neil.
Yeah.
Give him the nominees and see if he can work out who won.
It's like a challenge Neil.
A little bit.
Did the door just ring?
A little bit of a challenge, Neil. But Josh, I'd also like to get your opinion on whether you would have voted for that particular winner or if you'd have gone with somebody else. So I'll give you the nominees.
I don't know the answers. All I saw was a tweet from Laura Wood saying that she was hosting that particular event. So I don't know who won, other than Player of the Year, and that's the one I do know.
Okay, so we opened up with the PDC 9-dart club, and they award a gold pin for those who achieved a televised 9-darter, and they award a silver pin for those who achieved a 9-darter but off camera.
Yes.
There was 25 winners of the silver pin, so the 9-darter does happen quite a lot, but we obviously don't always see it on television. With this year, Neil, we had 2 gold pins awarded. Can you tell me who those were? The televised 9-darters in PDC competition this year.
Have we got that music, John? Play it.
I haven't, because I'm currently using my iPad to look at the answers. But we should have hooked that up. But
did you know?
I remembered the first one certainly.
Shall we put you out of our misery, Neil, or your misery? Sorry.
Give me a clue.
One was at the World Match Play, and the second was at the Grand Slam of Darts.
Josh is absolutely loving it. I didn't intend this to become a Challenge Neil section. This was just a bit of fun at the end, but Josh is absolutely loving this.
Total guess, Gary Anderson.
Correct.
Ah.
Here we go. There we go. And one was a youngster.
Dimitri van den Berg.
Correct. Well done. Dimitri van den Berg. So, and there were silver pins for Robbie Green, Ian White, Michael Van Gogh in ×3.
Yep.
Peter Jacques, John Goldie, Cameron Menzies, Jamie Lewis, Noel Malik Dem, Steve Hines, Stephen Bunting, Nathan Aspinall, Dawson Marshall, Dennis Nilsson, Lee Tell, Simon Preston, Adrian Lewis, Vincent van der Voort, James Wade, Christoph Ratashki, Robbie John Rodriguez, George Killington, Peter Hudson, Andrew Gilding, Jimi Hendrix, and Eddie Lovely.
I knew all of them.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. So that was the 9-darters. Pro Tour Player of the Year. Now, the nominations were Michael Van Gerwen, Peter Wright, Rob Cross, and Ian White. Neil, who do you think won?
Ian White.
No, it was Michael Van Gerwen.
Okay.
Josh, would you have gone with Michael Van Gerwen?
I think you would have. I mean, in terms of, obviously, he dominated the European Tour. He won 8 out of 13, I think, on the European Tour, and he still won a number of Pro Tour events. Ian White was brilliant. He topped the Players' Championship Order of Merit.
That was why I went.
So I think on that basis, you could have said Ian deserved it. But on the whole, obviously, the European Tour is incorporated in the Pro Tour, and Michael Van Gerwen, was dominant. So I think that was a fair decision.
Okay, the next award up was Best Newcomer. Neil, the nominees were Danny Noppert, Ryan Joyce, Luke Humphries, and Gabriel Clemens. Who do you think won it? Danny Noppert, Ryan Joyce, Luke Humphries, or Gabriel Clemens?
I'm going to go for Ryan Joyce.
I can understand why you go for that, but no, it was Luke Humphries.
Okay.
People who had obviously good performances at the Worlds and leading up to it as well. Josh, would that
Oh,
be
Ryan Joyce performed well at the World Championship.
Yeah, of course he did.
Both reached quarterfinals, of course. I mean, Luke, he's topped the Development Tour Order of Merit for 2 years running, so I almost didn't consider him a newcomer, but I suppose he is a newcomer to the main PDC stages. I'd have gone for maybe someone like Krzysztof Ratajski.
Yeah, I was expecting to hear his name as one of the nominations.
I think the only reason maybe he didn't is because he did compete in some PDC events last year. He obviously qualified for last year's World Championship and the European Tour last year, but obviously this was his first main year on the full circuit and he won 3 Pro Tours. But yeah, no, Luke's a terrific young talent. We're only going to see more of him, so fair play to him.
Okay, Neil, the next award was for the televised performance of the year. The nominees were Michael Van Gerwen for the Premier League final versus Michael Smith, Gary Anderson for the World Match Play quarter-final versus Joe Cullen, Michael Smith for the World Championship semi-final versus Nathan Aspinall, or Luke Humphries for the World Championship 4th round match against Rob Cross. Who do you think won that?
Missed out
Oh,
one.
no, sorry. And Daryl Gurney for the Players' Championship finals final versus Michael Van Gerwen. Quite a lot of information to compute there. I apologise.
I'm going to go for Gurney.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think it was an outstanding performance, wasn't it? I think.
No, it was fantastic.
I mean, yeah. I mean, averages-wise, it wasn't unbelievable. We've seen Daryl play better than that in terms of averages, but I think you've got to, you've got to accept the fact that it was a major TV final, and Van Gerwen very rarely loses a major final. I think that was his first TV individual major final defeat since 2015 against Thornton. So, incredible effort from Daryl Gurney. Okay,
Neil, the next award, and there was no nominations for this per se, Fans Player of the Year. Often, one of the most appreciated awards because it comes from the supporters and the people who turn up and watch. Fans Player of the Year, I want your winner and your runner-up, please.
How many was Josh allowed to vote?
No, Josh wasn't allowed to vote, so Barney's not in there.
I actually did vote, but I didn't vote for...
It's all coming out now.
It's very easy to predict Van Gerwen for these things, so I'm going to go for Michael Smith.
No, he didn't feature. The winner was Gary Anderson, voted for by the fans, obviously, and the runner-up was Michael Van Gerwen.
Yeah, I mean, you can understand Gary Offaly won 3 major titles last year, and apart from Michael Van Gerwen, he was probably the most outstanding player, and Gary's a fan's favourite. Wherever he goes, he's loved, so I wasn't surprised by that at all.
Next award, Neil, was the PDPA Players Player of the Year. No nominees to give you. I just want winner and runner-up. Players Player.
Michael Van Gerwen, Gary Anderson.
So Michael Van Gerwen was the runner-up. Winner was Michael Smith, voted for by the players. Quite an honour to receive that from your own colleagues.
Yeah, Michael Smith, he's grown and matured so much. I did an interview with him, as you mentioned earlier in the show, John. And obviously 2018 was his real breakthrough year. He reached 3 individual major TV finals, won the Shanghai Darts Masters. He's always had the talent, but he's matured so much as a player, very likeable, and I think he thoroughly deserved his award. He's only going to go from strength to strength, I think.
Fair play. Next up was the Young Player of the Year. Nominations, Neil, for Young Player of the Year were Max Hopp, Dimitri Vandenberg, Jeffrey Deswan, and Luke Humphries. Who do you think won Young Player of the Year?
Max Hopp.
Yeah, Max Hopp won that. Had a very good year, Max Hopp. Josh?
Yeah, Offaly won his first European Tour title in Saarbrücken earlier in the year, then won a Players' Championship event as well, so... It's unbelievable to think he's only the age he is, Max. He's been around so long. I think he made his World Championship debut at the age of 16. He's only going to get better. Terrific talent into the world's top 32, of course.
Before we move on to the Player of the Year award, Neil, just to mention that the PDC Hall of Fame inductee this year was the wonderful Rod Harrington, PDC director, and of course 2-time World Match Play champion.
Yeah, Offaly, Rod, in his heyday, a terrific player. As you mentioned, 2 back-to-back World Match Play titles is an astonishing achievement, given the format, and it's such an intense, difficult tournament to win. But Rod Offaly, we know him as a pundit and commentator for Sky Sports. But he's also played a massive role in the Challenge Tour and more poignantly, the Development Tour. So many top young players now coming through the ranks and establishing themselves in the PDC Elite. He's made a huge impact in terms of that. Obviously, he was the one who initiated the Development Tour, so very well deserved for Rod.
Yeah, Rod commented that when he after the induction, he said, "When I stopped playing darts, the best thing I ever did was get involved in helping to run the PDC. The most important thing we did and continue to do is to invest in young players. They are the future of our great sports." And Neil, Rod is obviously having a big hand in producing the future darting players.
Yeah, and I think Rod has obviously become a figure that we've got used to seeing on our televisions, and I think it's nice that he's been acknowledged for the work that he does away from television to help develop the sport.
Okay, so yeah, as I mentioned earlier, finally the Player of the Year,
Michael Van Gerwen.
Michael Van Gerwen. He was nominated alongside Gary Anderson, Michael Smith, James Wade, and Michael won it, Josh.
Yeah, no arguments really. Obviously, Michael Van Gerwen. We kind of talked about him going into the World Championship, saying it hadn't been the best of years for him in terms of the TV majors, but obviously winning the third world title, dominating the European Tour circuit. I think winning 19 or 20 titles in total. Yeah, you can't argue. Superb.
And never really looked in any danger during the Worlds, did he, I think?
No, he was dominant. I mean, Adrian Lewis gave him a real good game. It was 4-1. It was tighter than it suggested. But yeah, obviously 6-1 against Gary in the semis and 7-3 in the final. So really comprehensive from Michael Van Gerwen.
Okay, that is your In the News Roundup.
In the news.
This is Jackie Oatley, and you're listening to the Josh's Dartistry podcast.
Right then, gentlemen, we are fast approaching the end of the show. But as ever, before we go, let's have a look at the questions that have been coming in via Twitter for Josh's Twitter Chatter. Okay, Josh, we've had a question come in from Ben on Sport, at Ben on Sport on Twitter. Ties in quite nicely with the Dan Dawson interview from earlier.
Okay.
They've asked, who are your 5 players to look out for in 2019? Obviously, Dan gave us a few names.
Yeah.
Any others that you want to chuck out?
One man Anfield last week, Ricky Evans. I think 2019 will be a big year for him. I agree on the Jamie Hughes shout from Dan. I think he's going to have a really big year this year. Chris Dobie had a really good World Championship. I think he's ready to kick on now. Let me think. Stephen Bunting coming into a good bit of form. Obviously won his first round game at the Masters, into the quarterfinals of that. And
I noticed Dan Hutchinson on Twitter, at D Hutchinson, he replied. He threw out Jamie Hughes, Scott Baker, Gavin Carlin, Mike Van Duvenbode and Andy Bolton. Any of those names ring a bell with you?
Yeah, all 5 of those were players who progressed either through the European Q School or the UK Q School Order of Merit. So I think they all have good years. Also look out for Krzysztof Ratajski. He won 3 Pro Tour titles last year, but he didn't feature in many events. Now he's got his tour card, which he won through the Order of Merit, and I think he's going to be a big threat in all the TV tournaments and Pro Tours.
Yeah, Neil, you mentioned Ratajski earlier on, didn't you?
Yeah, there was two names that I was thinking. One was him. And the other, Vandenberg. I think at some point he's going to explode.
Okay, well, we look forward to seeing if any of those premonitions come true. Tropicana 180, or at John Vives, as their Twitter name is. Interested to hear your views on crowds now, especially PDC events. Interest in darts or just there for the drink and the party?
So I think we spoke about this on the last episode, how disappointed we were, John, when we went to the World Championships. So I went to 2 different days.
Yeah.
One I went in the evening with you, and the behaviour of some was a disgrace.
Yep.
And it's clear that for some that were in the crowd, the darts was just a
byproduct.
A byproduct of a night out on the booze.
It's like that famous old phrase someone said to me once. They went to watch a boxing match once, and a game of hockey accidentally broke out.
Exactly. So
I think it depends on the event.
I think it's a mix. To be honest, when I went to the afternoon session a couple of days later, the atmosphere was completely different, far less boisterous, and I guess that's because people haven't had the chance to be drinking all day, and there seemed to be a lot more interest in what was going on the stage rather than what was going on elsewhere in the crowd. So I think it is a mixed bag. The big arenas obviously give more scope to having more people, and the more people you have, the more likely you get those type of incidents.
Yeah, I think like the World Championship, obviously a lot of Christmas parties, that sort of season. The Premier League, you often get a lot of kind of casual fans going to watch, but tournaments like the UK Open and the World Match Play, obviously the World Match Play is a week-long event in the Winter Gardens, UK Open in Minehead, it's over a weekend. It's kind of real darts fans who go, and that's their kind of annual pilgrimage to the darts.
Yeah.
They love it. I think they're the kind of die-hard dart supporters who are more respectful, more knowledgeable about the game, but I think it just depends event to event, really. I
think back to the recent BDOs and the atmosphere at the BDOs. Get a lot of people dressing up at the BDOs, bit of fancy dress. A lot of cheering during the walk-ons and song singing, but during the play, it's a lot more, reserved and respectful, isn't it, Josh?
Yeah, no, completely agree. I mean, it's still a great atmosphere at the Lakeside. I haven't been, actually, as a fan. That's something I really want to do in the near future. But yeah, it's always a really good atmosphere, but also a lot of respect to the players, which is important.
Neil, I wouldn't want it, though, to turn into, I don't know, what's the comparison, like a snooker atmosphere where the game's played in silence. I don't think that's the route we want to go down, is it?
No, I think one of the great things about the darts is, the lively atmosphere, the people dressing up, the songs that are sung. But there's no doubt, and I've seen it once or twice at Ali Pali and twice at the O2, that some people do step across what is an acceptable line. And that's somehow needs to be stamped out if possible, because, this is a growing sport. It's becoming very, very popular. And you don't want youngsters or people of all ages being put off going to the arenas who are real darts fans because of the behaviour of a few idiots.
Okay, John, well, there's the thoughts of the panel on that. Josh, I think you've got another question for us that came in via Twitter.
Yeah, I've got a couple more, John. One from friend of the show, PDC Fan 180, who he has asked, who are your early predictions for Premier League elimination?
Well, Neil gave us the odds earlier, but what are our own personal opinions?
Well, I think you said Barney.
I pulled Barney out. That's nothing against Barney. That was based purely on form and ranking, nothing else.
And Josh said Price.
Yeah, obviously there's two, though, that get eliminated. Obviously that was talking about finishing bottom. If I had to pick now, I would say Gerwin Price, and I'm going to say Peter Wright.
Neil?
I'm going to go for Peter Wright.
Peter Wright, who incidentally has just, by the slimmest of margins, beaten Adrian Lewis in the Masters, Josh.
10-9, yeah, survived 2 match darts.
So I will say Peter Wright and Raymond van Barneveld.
Peter Wright and Raymond van Barneveld.
I think Gerwin Price, I think we're going to see a slightly different Gerwin Price, and I think you'll see some performances.
It could also all hinge on whether there is indeed a replacement for Gary Anderson should his health problems continue.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, if Gary is replaced...
let's say, for example, he's replaced by Whitlock. Would that affect your thinking?
Possibly. I mean, Whitlock did well last year early on. He won his first 3 games, but then towered off and finished 8th. Yeah, to be fair, it's nothing against Simon. I think if he did replace Gary, whilst I think he'd be very deserving of his spot, I think he would be a contender to go down, yeah.
Josh, I think we've got another Twitter question regarding the Order of Merit.
Yeah, that's right. We've got one from Amadus Modar, I believe. That's a difficult handle to pronounce. But he's asked, who do you think will drop the most in the Order of Merit this year?
Well, I think you can answer that one for us, Josh, to start us off.
Yeah, one of the biggest contenders. I don't think it's going to be anything to do with having a bad year, but obviously Rob Cross, through winning his World Championship title in 2018, obviously he'll be defending that this year, and I think he won £400,000 for winning that, so there's huge pressure on him. Even if he gets to the final and loses, he's still going to be losing about £200,000 on the Order of Merit, so unless he wins it, he's going to drop a lot.
Wright could be another contender, couldn't he?
Yeah,
he had a
very strong 2017.
2017, yeah.
Won 11 titles, won the UK Open, his only major title to date, won a lot of European Tour events, which are quite lucrative. You get $25,000 for them, so Peter Wright could be another one, yeah.
I'm not going to pretend I'm up to speed on the money and the amount of money that they're defending. through the tournaments, Josh. But I think the names that you've thrown out there are pretty good suggestions as to what we might possibly see over the coming 12 months. Friend of the show, Jordan Harrison, he asked a question, quite an interesting one, Josh. Being part of the press, you're probably best placed to answer this one for us. What are the press obligations players now have, and how has it changed?
Well, I think now, the TV coverage has grown beyond any measure, really, over recent years. So players now, if it's on Sky Sports, they're asked and obliged to speak and be interviewed by the host broadcaster, the PDC's media channel, and also tournament sponsors.
So after the game,
yes,
is it mandatory that they have to be interviewed? So you look at the Premier League football.
Yeah.
I think it is mandatory that the manager attends the press conference.
It's not mandatory.
Or a representative of the manager. So how is that in darts?
Difficult for a darts player to send a representative. I could see Peter Wright sending his wife out to answer a few questions.
Yeah, I mean, it's only for the winners.
Yeah.
So like at the World Championship, for example, they do their interview for Sky Sports, the PDC, and then they come into the press room and obviously speak to the written journalists and other media outlets who are there. So, but that's not an obligation for the losers, but they often still get interviewed behind the scenes. But no, for the winners, obviously they are obliged contractually even to do that. And it doesn't always happen. I mean, sometimes after quite controversial matches, if there's been a controversial incident or players in the heat at the moment, sometimes the PDC or the host broadcaster will decide not to interview that player for whatever reason, or due to time constraints. Sometimes, like the lesser players at the Worlds, in the first round, we don't always see them be interviewed, and that's obviously the decision of the broadcaster. But no, the winners are always interviewed after games.
So let's look at your experience at Alexandra Palace.
Yep.
You are in the press room.
Yep.
A player wins.
Yep.
He comes to the press room. How many press do we have there, and how long do you get with that player, and what's the format for those?
I was going to say, because there's so many different types of press, isn't there? Obviously, we've spoken about the host broadcaster, but now we're talking about radio coverage, then we're talking about the written press. The media commitments must be bigger than they've ever been.
Oh, they're huge, like I say. I mean, obviously, they start off by interviewing on Sky Sports or ITV, wherever they're playing. Then they usually go and do a separate piece with the PDC. Also, there's often like Dutch TV, German TV, that, like for the Alexandra Palace, for example, they're always there throughout the whole tournament. Then you're in the press room. You have like Live Darts, for example, big TV, YouTube channel. They interview the players. Obviously, myself, I sometimes represent.
Yeah, I was going to say,
website.
Then they have to put up with an email or a phone call from Josh saying, "Can you come on the Josh's Dartistry podcast, please?"
Yeah, no, thank you. But, and obviously at the Worlds, there was quite a lot of media representatives from the written press, like the Sun, the Daily Mirror, the Daily Mail, I believe, Sporting Life were there. So there's a lot of different media outlets and a lot of commitments. But it's just a general sort of press conference after the game. Usually the media outlets like Live Darts or myself would interview the players. Then it goes on to a separate piece where they speak to the written media like the Sun, the Daily Mirror, etc., the newspapers.
Very good. Interesting insight into the press obligations. Josh, have we got any more questions?
No, I think that's all for this week, John.
Excellent stuff. Well, as ever, guys, thanks for sending your questions in. They are always appreciated, and we will always do our best to answer them. Get your questions in for episode 12. Send them in to the Twitter handle at Josh's Dartistry. Right then, chaps, that brings us neatly to the end of the show. A little bit of housekeeping before we say goodbye. Don't forget to get your entries in for our new Last Man Standing competition. Josh, you're going to tweet out, as we mentioned earlier, just to reiterate the rules.
Yep, I am indeed.
But we want as many entries into that nil before the competition begins on Thursday night in Newcastle.
Yep, and I want to see a rule in case a player is not able to fulfil a fixture that week.
Well, you might want to see that. You might want to see Liverpool win the league.
Because I know,
is it?
I know what your selection is all about.
He's throwing grenades across the table already, Josh.
That's very. I am basing it on the fact that Mensah Suljovic averaged 106 last night. He's throwing very well, and Gary Anderson, if he plays, will not be at full fitness. Anything wrong with that, Neil?
Would you, in the normal course of events, tip Mensah Suljovic to beat Gary Anderson? when there are 4 other games available.
Just between you and I, JDP listeners, I think some people around the table are taking this far too seriously. But
They are indeed, yes.
Josh, did you want to respond to that comment?
I don't think it even warrants a response, to be honest, John.
I'll make you right. Okay, guys, get your last man standing entries into Josh's Twitter handle as soon as possible. If you don't get them in for week 1, we unfortunately can't include you in week 2. We look forward to running that. Once again, a big thank you to our special guest on our interview this evening, Dan Dawson. You are always welcome on the show. Thanks for that. We much appreciate that. Guys, that's it. That's the end of episode 11. Lots of darts to look forward to, Josh, over the next couple of weeks.
Yep, I'll be busy covering the Premier League for Sky Sports. Looking forward to that and bring it on.
Neil, you'll be trying to catch as much coverage as possible, I would imagine. You're free on Thursday nights generally, aren't you? You're not watching football?
As it stands, I am free on a Thursday night. I tend to be occupied with football Tuesdays or Wednesdays. So, no, but I'm certainly going to watch the Masters tomorrow, and I will watch the Premier League opening on Thursday, and look forward to James Wade keeping me in last man standing.
There we go. Okay, as I said, thanks very much to everybody. Thanks for downloading the show. Check us out on all the usual social media platforms. Stay in touch. And I think we'll probably record another episode in maybe a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah.
Give you an update on what's been going on in the Premier League.
Maybe before the UK Open gets underway.
Yeah, that's 1st of March, isn't it?
Yeah,
UK Open.
right.
Minehead?
Yep.
See, I'm getting good at this. I mean,
you are, John.
knowledge.
You're learning.
I'm learning.
I am away in March, so you can.
Even better.
You can plan accordingly.
Well, I'll tell you what. We'll get a friend of the show, Jordan, back.
Yep.
Maybe for the show, and he can come and deputise in, as he did such a good job last time and showed you up.
Why not?
And after your pathetic attempt at challenge Neil this evening, then it might be time for a change on the show.
Yep, I'm all for that.
I'm joking. What would we do without you, guys? Neil, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Josh, thank you very much.
Many thanks, John.
And from me, thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.
Josh's Dartistry.